We are reclaiming our cosmic powers right now at the cusp of the Aquarian Age, not so that we can create a new polarity, AI versus Earth, us versus them, but because we are bringing our earthly and galactic wisdom to meet this moment and harmonize the energies, bridging multiple dimensions of reality for the conscious human we are birthing. Devine is joining us for this conversation. She is a soul guide, multidimensional channel, and galactic shaman devoted to the evolution of consciousness and the expansion of human potential. Join us for this powerful conversation.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show. Soul Nectar Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and share our stories of connection to that which is greater than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably to a new understanding of ourselves and what we are doing here on Earth at this time of the Great Awakening. I'm your host, Kerri Hummingbird, and I love having these conversations week after week. And I've been doing this for over 10 years, as you know, and I'm feeling excited about that landmark. And I keep mentioning it because it's like big accomplishment to keep going and keep showing up and doing the work and having the conversations and opening up all of this beautiful medicine. So thank you for being with me. If you're just joining us now and you've never seen us before, or you're joining us, you've been with us for a long time, either way, it's all welcome. And so we're really grateful to have you here with us. And I want to say that it's a powerful time on Earth. It's such a powerful time to be alive, to be in a body. And we're navigating so many different dimensions of reality with even just within ourselves. We're really working with multiple aspects of self in multiple dimensions of reality. It's kind of amazing. And it might feel from time to time a bit disorienting or, just like ungrounded. Time has started operating really differently in the last few weeks or so. It's been operating extremely differently and crazily and in a flow, which is kind of cool, but also difficult to show up for appointments on time. Things like that. The practical realities are interesting right now. And you might be looking for some perspective that's outside of your third dimensional, fourth dimensional, even fifth dimensional reality, because all of those realities are definitely in flux now. And as we look out on the scene, like just in regular human society and interactions, it looks a bit haywire. Can we all agree? It's kind of a hot mess out there. It looks strange. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of revelations. There's a lot of, darkness coming out of people's mouths and that you would never have expected. There's so much we're witnessing it's wondering, how is this ever going to resolve itself? And what is happening to our society, to our kids, to our planet, to our national parks, to our family systems, to everything. And when we're down in the weeds, when we're down in the details, when we're down in the forest, we can see the trees, but we can't really see the bigger picture. And so that's why we take a flight with Eagle. We fly high with Eagle. We fly high above all of that to see the bigger picture, that sort of get the insights, that keen vision of where things are going. And then once we have that keen vision with those powerful eagle eyes, then it makes it easier to come back into the forest and navigate things, because we've actually been able to orient ourselves into a larger, bigger map than the one that we've been using up until now. And that larger, bigger map has more connections and more information that's really useful at this time as we orient ourselves to a whole new reality. Because as we all know, there's a new reality unfolding. The question is, where is it going? How's it opening up? What's it going to look like? These are all questions that we have. And there's so much guidance that I've been receiving to just stay in the not knowing. It's like a lot of the medicine of this time is to stay in the not knowingness so that something completely wild and new can open up that we didn't even imagine was possible. That's like the greatest potential that we could open up at this time, is when we can stay in that moment and in that not knowingness. And it's super helpful to have some, maps, some guidance, some bigger perspective. So today we're going to open up some of that bigger perspective, the multidimensional perspective, the galactic perspective, and we're going to bring that down into our mundane reality and see how it plays out. What does it look like? How does it move through us? What are the potentials? Just to give you some inspiration for how to meet this moment with a whole lot of grace and love in your heart, and also adventure, excitement for this new adventure that we're on, which is so exciting. So I'd like to welcome to the show Deanna Devine. Welcome, Deanna.
Hi, Kerri. So I'm happy to be here. That's a beautiful introduction.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here as well. And so Deanna Devine is a soul guide, a multidimensional channel, and a galactic shaman devoted to the evolution of consciousness and the expansion of human potential. She's a metaphysical activator and educator who bridges quantum principles, shamanic practices, and psychological integration to guide individuals to reconnect with their inner intelligence and create from alignment rather than force. And so her work is really focused on embodiment, energetic coherence, and the practical application of consciousness in real life. So she's also the author of a best-selling book, Mastering Quantum Creation: Awaken the Phoenix Within, Manifest Your Reality, and Reclaim Your Cosmic Power, which sounds just so freaking juicy. So I feel like this is just the perfect conversation to have at this time, as episode is coming out on June 28th, and we're heading into, the hot of summer, the heat, the next part of our journey on Earth here as we unweave the old and weave the new. And so, like, what a perfect timing to have you come on the show and give us some perspectives that maybe we haven't had before. And I'm just curious, like, before we get into all of the juicy insights I know you're going to give us, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you awakened to these gifts within yourself that you're now sharing with others.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm happy to share my story and go into the juicy stuff as well. This, multidimensional aspects of ourselves bring us into all kinds of incarnations. My incarnation here started in this lifetime in Soviet Union, so very different land than here. This is, 1980s, so, before the collapse of Soviet Union in the 90s. When I was 10 years old, my parents kind of were feeling things are changing, and so we immigrated to Israel. So I actually grew up in the northern part of Israel, and that was interesting, very different world where, I was living next to Nazareth, which is like kind of where Jesus lands were, and in this ancient, beautiful, very open environment, and at the same time, very polarizing environment. So kind of coming from Cold War Russia to Belarus, specifically Minsk, to Israel, very open environment. And yet, I was there during Gulf War, during a lot of interesting events that kind of really showed me new perspectives. So it's so interesting you were talking about the ego, because in my book, actually, I write my first chapter, and I had this also very shamanic way of describing my life. It's kind of like the scorpion years were the beginning of my life, where it was, where I got to see death, like face on, during the war. Also, someone committed suicide. But really, when I was 14 years old, I was in a bus stop with a friend of mine, and this voice internally started really commanding me to leave the area. And luckily I listened. I mean, I wasn't as connected back then. I didn't know what that was about, but that was the first time I actually experienced my higher self. And luckily, with all the internal fights, I still listen to it. As a teenager, you don't know exactly what and what. And then, yeah, the bus stop blew up. That was the first terrorist bombing in Israel in 1994. So there's a lot of eye-opening events. And I think that one specifically is really when I started questioning reality. I started questioning, like, how did this voice know this is about to happen? What exactly happened? It was, I started kind of on the contemplation level, digging deeper into understanding of self and realizing it's much more than you meet the eye. There are things that are beyond this perceptual lens. And, I came to United States when I was 15 and a half. I just felt like I needed to get out, and I stayed and lived with my grandparents, with my uncle, went to college here, had to go back and figure out army situation. But during that like early 20s is when I really started kind of diving deeper into this whole spiritual world. I had my first Reiki initiation actually in Israel, when I went back when I was 20. And it was beautiful and profound. That's when I started feeling energy. And the minute I started feeling energy, there was no stopping because I wanted to put my hands on everything and heal everything and realize I've always done this and I always knew this. And that took me into so many beautiful, curious places around the world, exploring different modalities from, shamanic modalities to psychology to quantum. It's kind of like dancing, doing a lot of ecstatic dance teaching, and kind of just like went deeper and deeper. I feel, going to festivals and exploring, I feel this reality, but also physically exploring. Late 20s, beginning of 30s, I was courageous soul and I was like, I gotta see the world. So I went backpacking 3 times around the world, pretty much. So I really got to see perspectives. And I think those perspectives helped me a lot to really be grateful for the present moment, for what I have. And then I also can break patterns, that I can break this whole paradigm of 9 to 5, that I can really, explore beyond the known. And so the minute you start kind of breaking the matrix, so to speak, and seeing what's out there and realizing, oh, wow, like these people in the jungle, in this little village, they don't have anything, but they're like the happiest people I've ever met. And they do these, ceremonies. The whole village gets together on a Friday night and they drink this medicine together, and they cleanse, they connect to the stars, they connect to the spirit. And how beautiful is that? But yet they have nothing really. And that beauty and simplicity of life was just so encouraging. And at that point, I already moved to New York City. So it was really interesting. I was like having these various experiences, crazy big city, and yet like traveling and coming back and integrating all of that. And so it became galactic much later, actually, when I was doing a lot of ceremony work. At some point, the ayahuasca medicine was like, I think you complete with this earthly shamanic experience and it's time to go galactic. And yeah, things just started opening up. I I started channeling light language, and understanding frequencies. New paradigms of abilities opened up that I never thought are even possible. Even a decade ago, Kerri, if you asked me that I'm going to be doing galactic Akashic records readings and looking at people's souls across space and time and doing all these quantum healings and all the things I'm doing today, I would have looked at you like, no way. I'm not able to. There's no way I can do that. I think that those limiting beliefs of what we are, who we are, is what stops us from what is possible. And I believe everything is possible just based on my experiences, because I never really thought I'm a psychic. I never thought of myself as a channeler or that level of healer. But it's something you open up to. And the deeper you go into trusting who you are and connecting deeper to your multidimensional self, then yeah, it's all there. It's all under the surface. And so that's a glimpse of my journey.
I love that. Yeah, I can resonate too with the experience of having the shamanic part, right? Like, so you're deep in the bones, deep in the mud, deep in your body, deep in the experience of being human and healing your past lives and ancestral stuff and whatever else needs healing, in your physical body, right? That maybe got placed here as you incarnated again. So anything that was unfinished, I feel like I did this whole 10-year healing process on my past life, and it was unfinished for me. It was a painful experience. So I feel like now it's like, yeah, okay, so this integrated. So now I get this other piece, the psychotherapy, right? That happened in the first 2 decades, like weekly psychotherapy and all of the understanding the mind. It's like we get brought through these phases of development so that we get all of these pieces of the puzzle, right? That we get
Yeah.
to integrate.
Exactly. And I think you came on my podcast, the Soul Communication. We talked about that. And so yeah, the phases I kind of skipped about that, but it's like the scorpion and the eagle. So right, you in the kind of in the mud, so to speak, and then you come out of the mud and you starting to see like an eagle from the perspective, right, flying higher. And then from that moment, there's a moment where you actually done being an eagle and you choose to transform and transmute what's not serving you anymore. And that's when you emerge into the phoenix. And this process of phoenix, that's like part of my book, Awaken the Phoenix Within, is reclaiming our power, but also knowing that we can go through this resurrection process again and again. And there are some densities, some aspects of ourselves, some past lives, parallel lives, whatever, they all happen simultaneously. We can integrate that. Those are in shamanism, we call them soul pieces, right? Part of our work in this lifetime is actually that level of integration, is doing the trauma work that is maybe seeping through from other lifetimes. Because the way I see it, it's like, you know how you open a browser and you have too many tabs open and your computer is having a really hard time and it's like, making those noises because it can't process it. Sometimes we have to close those tabs because the tabs are also leaking energy. And those tabs can be traumas in those situations from this current lifetime. It can be other lifetimes, galactic, earthly, you name it. And so the more we can integrate back these soul pieces and close the tabs, and sometimes you get to a point where it's like you need a full reboot. And if you don't do it, guess what? The soul, the spirit will do it. I mean, how many times you hear people get this full awakening because they have some catalytic event that happened in our life, divorce, some disease, that unseen like lack of ease, right? It just like forces you, or near death experience. I mean, we hear all of that. It's like if you're not paying attention and you need to pay attention, something will happen to really give you that push. And that's the reset. That's like someone hit that reset button. It's like you got to reboot that whole thing because you just on the wrong pathway. And so for me, like I was mentioning, it's like noticing these reset moments and noticing where things need to shift and pivot. And that's how we learn. And so, but it is that Phoenix journey because ultimately it's not a one-time event. I mean, how many times through our lives where there's this a version of us that exists, but then version comes to a place where it's no longer, serving us, and it's time to go into the fire, burn through what's not serving us, let go, which is a very hard place, and emerges this new version, more coherent version, stronger version, more resilient, and more in the heart. Because as we burning through these layers, we coming into our heart, into embodiment of who we truly are, and deeper remembrance as well. At least even if we don't know the pieces, it's just like there's more harmony within us, more peace. And so it's tackling that inner war, because the external validation that we're constantly seeking from outside the world, that's like the distraction, right? The work is really from inside out. And so doing that recollection and reconnection, it's the work. And it might take, you were talking about a decade. It took me in this lifetime, fully awake, over 25 years to collect my soul pieces. I just literally integrated my last one like a few weeks ago, even though I thought it was done. And it was it was me in Mayan timeline. I was a Mayan shaman who was beheaded. It was part of the sacrifice practices. But I found that place in 2012. It took me all around through Central America to find where exactly it happened. I found it. It was in Tikal. I write in my book about it. This beautiful complex called Mundo Perdida, which is the lost world. This is where they used to converse with the stars. So they would, take mushrooms, drink cacao, do all these rituals, do their fire ceremonies. And so remembering that aspect of self. And of course, as life would have it, I ended up back there pregnant at the end of the world in 2012. If you remember, December 21, 2012,
Oh
where
yeah, I
we
mean,
thought
2012 was when I really started my path in earnest, so that was a big year.
it
2011 is
was a
when
big
I
year.
I woke up and I was like, "Oh, I have to leave. That's the end of the rope. This storyline is over. Moving on." Like yeah,
Yeah. Well,
because we
2012
all
was
woke
quite a
up.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. And for me, it was like I was like 7.5 months pregnant. Here I am at the end of the world. And then with a group of like, 50 people or so. And then, I didn't know where they're gonna set up their camp. And I'm following them, and it's a really big park, it's like 3 miles long wide. And then I'm following them, and they're setting up their ceremony, their fire ceremonies, right in that section of Tikal, of that park. It's talking about karmic loops and like, closing contracts. And I realized I'm like, this is closing that chapter, but also opening a new one as I'm carrying new life into 2013.
It's so powerful. And it is like this has been a time, this has been a lifetime of that inner reconciliation. And like you said,
Mhm.
like tying up the loose ends, like the things that were unforgivable, like actually coming through and finding forgiveness for it, integrating the lessons and medicine of it, bringing it forward in you in a different way. And, whatever that looks like for each person is going to be intense for sure. Those last few things that you couldn't forgive, if you're on this leg of the journey, I feel like, and I feel like there's also been this stepping into leadership part too, where along with all of the reclamation, let's say, of all of our divine gifts of, it's like, how do I know what to do with altars? I don't know. I just know. How do I know what to do with feathers? I don't know. I just know. How do I know like who sings through me? I don't know. I just know. It's like at some point you just know, and you just do it because you just know. It's not thinking about it anymore because you just are that and you just remember. But not all of us have, let's say, certain pieces of the puzzle maybe haven't opened up yet. Like you were talking about access to the higher realms and things like that. And I will have occasional, even though my oversoul is white eagle, I don't walk around like just hanging out with, high council people. Like I don't think I do. Kerri is just Kerri. Like Kerri's living Kerri's life and Kerri's walking around. Like that's not really opened up for me. Like I don't have like just constant awareness of that. But every so often I'll be in like you said, a medicine journey and some part of me will be super passionate about something or other, and it'd be like communicating and like, hey, it's like, and some part of me that my mind doesn't know will be totally full on communicating in this area. And it's like, okay, there's something going on here, and my heart completely knows what it is, but my mind is not on board. And I do think like that's on purpose. I feel like in order to, at least for me, in order to continue functioning, in a lifetime as a person, with a name and with a past and all of that, you can't have like complete transparency, because that would be, I think, would kind of take away some of the mystery of the journey, right? Like, so there's some masking of things that I think is actually part of being both and, like both the higher soul and the one who's living the experience, right? The aspect that's living in this dimension, having the physical experience. It has to be some kind of masking. Otherwise, there would be no mystery to it. And then you're just walking around knowing exactly what's going to happen. That would be boring.
Yeah, I mean, that's one perspective. And another
I think.
perspective is that this multidimensional amnesia that we're in is also kind of done on purpose and by some other beings that want to control us here. Because galactically, when I look at us through space and time, in at least at Milky Way, I can see that other aspects have the remembrance of their other lifetimes. So this is very specific to this experience as a human. And some of it actually was imposed as part of this controlling machine here. Like we are in recycling kind of the soul here. So the soul does not remember specifically. But as you can see, we are reconnecting now. So everyone is kind of coming online, start connecting. Including myself, who, yeah, I don't just hang out there with the high console. That would have been too much. Some people do. I like to be very grounded and very practical and very here. And yet I like the ability to switch it on. You know, if a client comes to me and they want to see their past lives or, you know, the galactic lives, I can tap into this quantum field of information. So what is quantum? Quantum is this, you know, energy field that from quantum physics, they talk about, you know, it's like waves and particles. So it's like, think of it like ocean of waves. And when you break the waves, you manifest in physicality into particles. We are particles. So we are part of this ocean of information. We are quantum. So that's how we can do healings. We can quantumly entangle. We're all connected. We're all part of that ocean, right? Little driplets of that ocean. And so, you know, we can be in different states like you and I, Kerri, and get on a Zoom call, and I can read your Galactic Akashic records. I can, you know, clear your chakras. I can recalibrate your geometry. I can do all this purging and multidimensional clearing with time and space not being a constraint, because again, it's an illusion of the mind. And so there's, you know, a lot of potential for us, but we also perceiving our reality in a certain way based on what the human has initially access to. So like we think five senses, we think, you know, this is what my eyes can see, therefore this is, you know, I can touch this, therefore it's real. But we know that this, a lot of it is kind of simulation too. It's what our nervous system recognizes. So if our nervous system had certain patterns and it carries traumas and it doesn't feel safe, like this is kind of how a primordial brain operates. It doesn't feel safe if things change. It doesn't feel safe if, you know, it's a new environment. So how do we make it safe, right? How do we learn how to surrender deeper and go into that unknown? So there's new spiritual muscles, so to speak, that we have to train to get comfortable in this new space, this multidimensional space of possibilities. Because in that ocean of possibilities, everything exists. So, but it's kind of how we navigate it. How do we become pro surfers, Kerri? You know, like it takes practice. You know, it's like going to the gym and lifting weights. You don't go just from 5 to 20. Like you got to do it every day, and little micro changes. And it's all about awareness. We don't want to live so much in the future in anxiety or in the past in depression. We want to be in the now. How do we come into our heart, into the now? You know, we need to build some practice promotes presence. If you're not doing early morning, some sort of practice, whether it's meditation, whether it's affirmation, whether it's breath work, whatever it is, to bring yourself to the heart, to how your day is about to go, how coherent you are. You know, you operating then like a robot on autopilot, right? You run into work, you're very reactionary. You kind of wake up in the morning feeling groggy and continue through the day feeling groggy without awareness of your emotional state. So one thing we have to train ourselves is how to control our emotions. You know, how can we shift and pivot? And we are full spectrum beings, so we can feel, and that's the beauty of being like in this body, because this body has over 30 different genomes of different galactic beings. We're actually like a garden of all of that, and we're able to actually experience reality and these emotions like no other. So that's why they're so fascinating with us. That's why there's a lot of like, you know, now you start hearing a little more in the news, galactic, whatever, UFOs, things that will unravel in the next few years in terms of disclosure. But really, like, we already have these contacts. But why they're interested in us, why they're like, Earth is such a big deal? Because we are an experiment. Like, this earthly garden has been planted by us, actually, when we were star beings in other constellations. We came here from other places. A lot of us are star seeds. There are earth seeds, obviously, here, but many of us came here to help evolution of consciousness here. We came here to help Mother Earth, who was in third dimensional frequency, and she just moved to fifth. So we help in this frequency bandwidth to shift as we are shifting. So as we embody more of that frequency of love, and the more we can, move out of shame, guilt, and these like suffering states that most of humanity is in, and operate from fourth density, which is heart oriented, not so much about push and pull, like what we see you start Kerri about all the stuff happening out there. That's third dimensional density. That's the push and pull energy,
Mhm.
like because it's finite. Let's have a war, right? Let's fight over resources, over oil. It's like me versus you, so transactional. Have you noticed when you like in a connection or relationship with someone and if all they care about is the transaction itself? What did you give me, Kerri, versus what did I give you? It's so draining, I believe. And I think we've shifted into this more abundant, overflowing type of relating where it's through the heart space. We just, in one flow of ocean, we would contribute into the greater whole. We recognize we interconnected. We recognize that, it's in service. The work we do to others is also the work we do for ourselves. So it's personal, it's collective, and then it's like planetary consciousness. We all responsible. So we become stewards of the frequency and how can we, support it and hold and anchor it. So a lot of people who, like myself, like yourself, Kerri, like we are holding that frequency like the mothers, this
Yeah.
container for others to step into and get on board and feel that too. So it's like this love ripple. That's my mission, like love ripple. One change you can create little ripple, right? That person is going to go and shift someone else and shift someone else, and that ripple of love is moving through this planet right now, this realm, and we see. So even though everything seems so grim from one perspective, that's the polarization aspect. On the other side, there's just so much incredible stuff happening. People are changing lives. People are waking up. There's like huge shifts I'm seeing even with people who I could never have this conversation on any of this. All of a sudden, listening to my podcast, or your podcast, Kerri, which is kind of deep. We're not sugarcoating things, and some of it might be very foreign still, and some of it does resonate. So, like, really going into resonance of like, not listening to the noise because there's so much noise, but going back inside and it's like, does this resonate? Does the information resonate? Just because it's a teacher who calls himself like a guru in New Age community doesn't necessarily mean this is correct.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah.
you have to go in, right? And like discern,
Mhm.
discern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discernment. I kept getting the message that discernment is like the major lesson for this time on the planet and probably for the foreseeable future, probably definitely the rest of this lifetime and maybe the next couple is like discernment, what's true, what's not, because everyone's going to take their own time and like coming to these dimensions, these upper dimensions. They're going to take their own sweet time with it. I have impatience in my chart, so I'm like always impatient with how long it takes. But I have to remember, like, I've been on this planet for probably thousands of incarnations. So I've been guiding this whole DNA thing, at some level for my soul. So, like, I'm already aware of all this, right? And so if you've had a lot of lifetimes on Earth, well, it's easier to get your feet on the ground. But like, let's say that you're like Arcturian and you haven't been on this planet for like a really long time because it was way too dark and dismal for you to even attempt to put your body in this place, then yeah, it's going to take you a little while to figure out how to get your feet on the ground, right? It's going to take a little while to figure out how to connect with Mother Earth, the mushroom mycelial network, all the beautiful grid of light. It's going to take a time to figure out how to become that tree of life. It's not going to be like instantly that you figure it out. It's going to be, lifetimes. And that's what we're here for. We're here to anchor this. Those of us who've been here for a really long time had lots and lots of experiences. We had our time of like, this past couple 20, 30 years you're talking about to like do your work, wrap up your stuff, because it's not going to be
Yep,
about you going forward. It's not about us
exactly.
anymore. It's like us being in service. So it's like the new frontier. So like, yeah, and I feel like it's really important that everybody get grounded. I understand the impetus to like want to open up access to like all the upper realms and all the upper dimensions and different parts of the galaxy, which are like more easy to be in because their energy frequencies are easier for us to tolerate. Many of us who are, maybe, especially if you're like really an upper dimensional being, it's pretty uncomfortable being so far low, like it's uncomfortable to be here. So I can understand wanting to
Absolutely.
open that connection back up just to get the heck out of here. Like get me out of this meat suit. Like it's really dense. But like the thing is, like the more we bring our essence into these like meat suits, the more we bring ourselves into this personality, into this beautiful beloved being, like then we actually can open up like so much more potential for magic, for all the beautiful things to happen on this earthly plane that we want to bring, that we thought this would be really a fun playground, to create something new, a new
And I
game to
think
play.
new game, and I think you hit on it. Like the key is playfulness. We forgot that we are creative beings, and we've actually created this whole reality game. We created Milky Way. We created the stars, nebulas, Lyra. A lot of us who are star seeds, Elohim Collective, Seraphim Collective. We've been playing this game on so many levels, beyond just being Arcturian, Andromedan, Osirian, or Pleiadian. That's just our, physical forms, but we are ultimately light beings that coming from, not most of us are not from here altogether. Milky Way is actually a replica of Andromeda galaxy, so with less dimensions. So in order for us to experience physicality and expansion of consciousness, we created the Milky Way because that was part of the experiment game. Earth is just another, of course, variable in the bigger, long game. But like even if you look astronomically, it's really interesting because Andromeda Galaxy and Milky Way are going to merge together in linearly in 4.2 billion years. Like they are coming back together. So talking about children that are now coming in, right? As you said, they don't have as much experience. My kid is her first time on Earth. I just mentioned I brought him in 2012, 2013. And that was the whole thing. Like every shaman that saw me, they were like, new frequency, new frequency. You got to burn through your stuff here, girl. You got to level up to bring that in. So he was a great teacher for me. He's 13 years old now. And yes, he has been having a hard time being here, with all kinds of label like ADHD, which I like to coin as attention dial to higher dimensions. And so these children, they operate really
Yeah.
differently. Like the way they hypercomputing things, the way they connect into things or disconnecting, it's a bit of both. And it's a challenge. And I know there's a new wave of children coming from Andromeda Galaxy in the next year or so. So it's going to be different, new frequencies coming in, and we need to hold that for them and support them in their evolution in through our, like you said, many lifetimes here and understanding of this planetary grid. And things are going to really shift here. We also have a new paradigm. I talk a lot in different podcasts, but I was just also in California, and the topic was awakening the quantum human at the age of AI. So talk about AI, right? The elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is going to exponentially change our lives in a way we can't even fathom. So AI is great in the way that it can allow us to be creators. Like I created a whole Oracle deck. I had the download and I created all these images and everyone loves it with the help of AI as a tool. But we have to remember that's artificial intelligence. That's synthetic. We are the source intelligence. We are the creative beings. This is just a helper tool. As long as we work with it as for us to continue evolve, and it helps us in that expansion of consciousness, wonderful. But where it gets dangerous when we start outsourcing ourselves completely to something that is just starting to learn from us. It's mimicking us. It's really good in pattern
Yeah, it's a
recognition.
very good mimic. Yeah.
It's a very good mimic, but what
Mhm.
doesn't have, Kerri? It doesn't have empathy. It doesn't have curiosity. It doesn't have, all of the qualities that true human has. And so really getting back to our humanity, right? What really matters, like the connections we have with people, that one-on-one, that presence, and using AI in that way, but also being really cognizant, where does it fit into our life? And so there's going to be structural changes because there's definitely, from galactic perspective, there's like twofold things here because I'm seeing kind of like, let's say, an Andromeda system. They use an AI a lot, but it's organic AI. It's like embedded in their biosphere biospheres, it operates the ships, they kind of interact with it. But ultimately, the decision making is through it's by the humanoid, the being, not AI. But it's very different because it's organic. Digital AI, it's kind of almost like its own gamut because we don't even really have a full understanding of it. And also, if anything we learned from our lives on Earth, like Atlantis, things got hijacked. Things kind of went really the wrong way when we started playing with technology, not in conscious way. And so it's important to be all, constantly conscious about what we create and how we creating it. What's the purpose? What are the ethics behind it? Everything you consuming information wise into your system, and also what are you outputting, right? Are you there to inspire others? Are you there in service? Do you have like pure intention? And also what kind of information are you consuming, whether it's from AI or some, news channels, whatever that is, because that also pollutes the system. So how can you keep pure the purity of the mind, of your emotional state, of your beingness? I think this type of spiritual hygiene is so important these days, to really have strong boundaries, AI included, like, knowing what you are versus what AI is super important these days.
Yeah, it's back to that discernment thing. And there's also the
Mm-hmm.
sustainability, because we are in a transition phase, right, with the technology where
Yep.
it's growing faster than we have the technology to make it sustainable for the planet and healthy for the planet, right? So it's also that, we're sort of ahead of ourselves a little bit and we need to slow it down just a tad to get, back into this 7th-generation conversation. Like, how are we going to roll something out in a way that's sustainable, that has a technology that it doesn't, use up vast portions of water, which is what's happening now, so it's using up a lot of water on the planet, just like evaporating this water out of places that were full. There's been like full lakes, like Salt Lake, for example, that's now
Yeah.
dry, right? Because of this. So
Yeah.
we're moving
These
a little
data
bit
centers
faster than we're ready,
yeah, the data centers are really requiring a lot of capacity and power and heat and everything to operate it. And so there hasn't been good governance. And that's the problem. I think that's what happened. That's why I mentioned Atlantis. Like, if we were to learn from civilizations and what happened 12,000 years ago, we're in that place right now where we have to make some decisions because it didn't end well for us back then. And so it's right, prioritizing that as well. For sure, it's moving way too fast. And unfortunately, there's a corporate grid, a political agendas here in a lot of this without thinking through all the sacrifices and repercussions of it. That is very interesting, including quantum computing. That's another area that I'm looking. Quantum computing is actually more interesting for me. That is more organic. It's very separate from AI. AI, I don't know if you Star Trek like myself. If you learned anything from these sci-fi shows, they always allude to possibilities, right? We don't want to be grim, but that's in timeline where, AI takes over. It absorbs it. That's what it tends to do. It absorbs consciousness, like the Borg in Star Trek, or these robots go out of hand, whatever that is, right? So we have to like really think through that. Versus, in Atlantis too, like they allowed the technology to rule. They started really doing things that were just not morally right, and so the whole civilization had to be taken down because it was just it pushed through that threshold. And so it's an interesting place. Like, choices that we make on the personal level really matter, and of course collective.
Yeah, and it's important to also, like, I hear a lot of people in the polarization conversation of like, well, the worlds will split and then these people will move over there and these people will move over here and it'll be like a glass wall and you won't even see it. And maybe that's true. Or maybe it's the same as it ever was and we walk the middle way, And so in every
Yeah.
shamanic tradition has taught
Yes.
us to walk the middle way between the worlds. And so, yeah, there's going to be some that go way over on the side, and then others that go way over on this side. And we're going to be walking the middle way. That's the balance. That's the place where we keep the balance, of these different polarities that are happening. There's always going to be polarities here, but like, how do you keep the system stabilized? You got to have somebody walking the middle way and building bridges between these two camps and having, new ideas about how to fuse these things together in a sustainable way that makes sense for everybody. That's kind of the mature path. And I feel like, we need as many takers on that path as possible at this
I
point.
totally agree with you. And I think what you're talking about, bifurcation versus what truly is happening is trifurcation. And the trifurcation is that middle path in the middle, which is some of us that are recognizing this, where it's more through our own internal sovereignty, right? It's not so much ascension process where we going somewhere but really it's ascension process, which is moving back into your 0 point of the heart. And so there's going to be those who, of course, in whatever descension AI track, like want to go into towards that Armageddon timeline. No, thank you. And then there's the ones that kind of really talk a lot about like, oh, moving to 5D, the ascension. But 5D is already here. So it's a little more than just 5D. It's not just about the bliss and La La Land. It's like you said, having a wall. I gotta have to laugh at that one, having a glass wall, us versus them. It's not
Yeah.
so clear cut. And it's always like those of us who really kind of, see it as lightness and dark, but really I don't feel I'm a light worker or dark worker. I'm really a creature of the void. I'm the phoenix, right? I am here to integrate both of these polarities. And I think that is the work. We need to integrate those polarities within ourselves. That starts with us first, the masculine, the feminine, find the balance of those energies within ourselves. Whatever is imbalance, it starts with us. And then from that place, as we come into the 0 point of the heart, we start creating that reality, which you're totally right. We are the bridges, between science and spirituality, between AI and spirituality. That's what I'm doing right now. All of these things, they have to interconnect because they're not separate.
Yeah. And so, like, what you were saying is really important too about how re-waking up the knowledge of other lifetimes where we have been through similar crisis points and doing it differently this time, right? So that inner knowing and that tapping into that wisdom is really important at this time, as well as just simply getting our bodies on the ground, our feet tapped back into Mother Earth. Mother Earth's intelligence, she remembers all of this. So, like, even if you don't specifically remember your particular part in it previously, Mother Earth remembers everything. So, that mushroom mycelial network is really important to tap back into because then you can get the downloads that you need. Like, I guess there would be uploads, like you need uploads, from Mother Earth. As much as you need downloads from the sky, you need uploads from Mother Earth so that you can actually remember like some of the lessons of the past and do it differently this time, right? Like we're making a different choice. That's why we get all these opportunities to try it out a different way. And so, yeah, this is one of those moments. Pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah, I see us. I love how you said uploads because it's so true. Usually, when I start my meditation on any galactic work or anything, I always go first to the mother and I ground them there and I, connect them to the plasmatic iron core of the mother because everything we do is really for her. And then from there, we expand up, right? And so being rooted here is so important because often enough, yeah, everyone's kind of like floating up there. And it's like, that's not embodiment. Embodiment is key right now. And so, but also, I remember, I think it was in Shamanic somewhere, I saw like a true bridger, and that's what we are, has one hand kind of towards the ground and the other hand up towards the sky, right? So that's what we are. We are here literally these star beings from somewhere else, but we are here having a physical human experience, and we are connecting to the mother. We are bringing through our vessel all these codes to her as well, and I yeah I sing them all the time. I give it to her. Like she's also upgrading through us. So as our frequency changes, we helping her as well to activate. And that is important to remember.
Yeah, and it does have an impact on the body. So if y'all are experiencing unusual dynamics inside your body, that's just part of it. We're being upgraded, and all these codes are moving through us on behalf of, right? And so, yeah, it can be a journey of your innards, your insides, physically and also emotionally and mentally and everything else. So,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
so much Solaris, is having so much activity, and all the light particles that are being released with every geomagnetic storm we receive in them. Yeah, people to call them ascension symptoms. It's not ascension symptoms. It just means this is like back to the computer. So like that, the soul is a software. The spirit is very free. It holds all the information. This is a hardware. It's like having my old Mac here that is having a hard time because I'm pushing it to extremes, and it's like it needs some upgrades. And it's slower in recognizing these frequencies. It's a lot all happening at once, so it's kind of chugging along. So we need to be gentle with ourselves. So
Mhm.
yes. There's going to be those days like when we're recording this week, there was like constant, soul activity. You get to a point where you can hold more light. So the capacity you build in your field, the more you clear your debris, the more you activate your kundalini, which is your energy field. And that's what I help a lot of people kind of activate that. Then it's easier to process, this upgrades of the software. The body is not having as much hard time. It's usually when you hold things back. It's almost like I see them, these blocks of energy in the field. It's like you get a jolt of lightning into that place, but you like hold it and you're like, no, no, I don't want to release. So this energy is a positive energy, the cosmic energy. The Kundalini energy in our body is actually negative. So the positive starts pushing the negative. So it starts like rising through and it's trying to break through all the distortions and all the blockages. And this is where we experience this ascension symptoms. It's like on the physical level, cramps, not letting us sleep, all of these things. It's like this hardware is like adjusting. But as we go deeper and surrender, and this is helping us in a way to lighten up, to come back to that, state of the quantum of us being light beings. It's part of the journey here, but I think it's intentional in some ways, even though it feels like, oh, it's cosmic, we're just going through solar maximum. I think it's part of this bigger cycle we're going through.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you get through it, and, then you get some good sleep again. It feels good.
It
So,
does.
yeah, sleep is nice. So, okay, well that's a lot. That's good. I feel like it's a good download and an upload.
And
Both.
upload. Let's open a card. I have my oracle deck here
Okay,
and
yeah,
see
let's do that.
what
I felt like there was
message.
something else, but I didn't know what it was.
Let's see what message is for the audience.
Yeah,
I
let's
think
see.
I call them, confirmation integration message. Oh, I love this one. So this is the Larian Bloomfield heart center creation. So it goes back to, the humanoid experience in this Milky Way started in the Lyra system. So if you think of the movie Avatar, kind of you see them as these
Mhm.
big beings, semi, feline and humanoid. That's where a lot of this, like when I look into Galactic Akashic records, that's where we started. This is where we experienced paradise planets, and we lived in this like beauty until things changed, kind of like what we see in the movie Avatar. But it reminds us about the hearts, the Lyran language, Lare Tushtura, it's all around the heart. The Lyrans teach creation through harmony and grace. Begin in stillness and expand through the frequency of love.
I
So
love it.
begin in stillness. Find stillness in your life. If you're too busy, build those pockets of time when you can be still and you can listen to you. And then when you can start listening internally, not externally, that's when you start expanding through the frequency of love, finding those connections to your own self-love. And I feel this is the theme for June, really, in July, because we are kind of, as we're recording this, we're moving into the 6-6 portal, which is all about harmony and love. and embodiment and go on. Like I feel months of May, we've been purging and clearing and clearing and clearing. We just had a very strong full moon and in Sagittarius. And now we kind of merging out of the cocoon, starting like integrating the self-love, integrating self-care, like being more in nature and like connecting, like we finally in the summertime, right? In North America, we can get our feet on the ground. We can, really connect to the mycelium network, as you mentioned, my favorite. Hug a tree. The tree is amazing. They have so much information too that can be also uploaded.
Yeah, excellent. That's true. Yeah, and as we're opening up so many new adventures, so it's going to be really fun to see how it all plays out. And some of the not knowing is being in the void of possibility for how the best impossible timelines occur for all of these things that are unfolding right now. And I'm specifically thinking right now about all the impact in Mother Nature right now and, different political things going on with Mother Nature. And I feel like that's all going to find itself in a really good place. But right now it may not look so good. So as we face these things, I feel like a good solution is to bring this higher aspect of ourselves, this higher intelligence, this higher, the one that knows,
Mhm.
to literally wrap your wings of light around everything that you're out pictured that you're seeing, and then lift it to the upper room, lift it to the next octave, lift it up higher to be reconciled, to be reconstituted, re-expressed, re-known. And that work, I love Paul Selig's work, the Christ consciousness. I lift everything to the upper room to be re-known, re-articulated, recalibrated at the highest octave available at this time. And yeah, if we just keep doing that with everything we're seeing, that we maybe don't prefer things we're seeing, some of these things we don't prefer at all. And we just wrap our wings of light around it and then just keep lifting it to the next highest expression, then not only will your perception of it change, but also you'll help the collective to kind of shift out of that sort of basement of hell expression into
Well, you
something higher, something more.
you're reharmonizing, and that's what
Yeah.
we're here to do, like reharmonize the polarities, right?
Mm.
And because the polarities and dualities, they're also an illusion in some ways. So the wonderful tests of our consciousness to give us perspective, but ultimately we need to come to that place of alignment and neutral positioning. So like, I come from like very hot zones in the world right now, whether it's like what's happening in Israel or whatever, Ukraine and Russia. But I wrap, like you said, that those areas in the wings of light. I work on sacred, grids of the earth. And that's something I've been doing here since before I was a human as an Andromedan. I've been here. I've been involved in this, game for a long time. But that's the only thing we should be doing, honestly, because the more we get entangled into the polarity energy itself, we are feeding it too. We helping it to anchor and be the timeline. But the more we step away from that and we choose in something else and we say, no, like I choose a different timeline and we all choose in a different timeline, and we just, bring it back to the frequency of love, kind of like the ripple of love that we just heard about from the heart center place. And remember, we are creative beings that can bring it back there, then allowing it to, rework itself on its own. Like we don't need to do much. We just have to hold that space for that to happen. And so that's how I've been approaching it. My, my neutrality, I feel like, is more helpful right now than me choosing side or saying, he's right versus he's wrong. We can't control those circumstances. We can't control politics either. So we might not like it, like you said, but I think the best thing we can do is actually do nothing.
Or
And it's
do the
hard to
or take a
do not
compassionate action,
be
right?
compassionate in
Take a
action,
compassionate
forgiving.
action in
Yeah.
favor of something. I always think about Mother Teresa, it's like
Yes.
she's like, I was never against anything, I'm only for something. So like, yeah, you see all the stuff that you feel against, and there's a lot of things you could feel against about, but doing that inner work to come into balance, like lifting it all to the upper room, bringing it all into reconciliation. And then from that neutral place you're talking about, then asking what's a compassionate action towards
Correct.
creating the kind of future I want to see on earth? Like, what's a compassionate action I could take that would actually lift this whole thing out of that even being a possibility, right? Like, we're just taking that out of even being a possibility by our collective agreement that it's not, so I think
It's not
we're
in
at
my
that place.
reality. It's not
Yeah.
my reality game. I don't
Yeah.
operate that
Thanks for
way.
offering that version of reality. I prefer this other one.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like you can even practice it in your personal life and just notice, like, as you shift those bubbles of reality, like some of these people and some friends that maybe have been toxic all of a sudden fall away on their own. Like your circle changes, you know, the way you live your life, the way you react to things changes. You much more in this much more neutral state where you respond to life, and you're not reactionary. Like the other day, I was driving and doing my thing, listening to my music, and this guy behind me was like going crazy and beeping and like so upset and like going around me. And I was like sending him love. I was like, dude, I don't know what's going on in your life. Whether you like, just save that 1 second extra, making it on time wherever you were going. But all you can do is like what you said, compassion action is just sending him love, whatever he's going through, even though, it seemed like it was the end of the world. Humans tend to dramatize as well, but all we can do is just support them.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful transmission. I loved it. It feels good. It feels super expanded and really practical at the same time. So thanks for bringing that in. And I know that and you have a website and you have a podcast, Soul Communication Podcast, and I'm going to be on that podcast, so people can go check me out over there. And you have a book, Mastering Quantum Creation: Awaken the Phoenix Within, Manifest Your Reality, and Reclaim Your Cosmic Power. That's available on Amazon. I will put a link in the show notes to where that is, as well as to the podcast. Is there anything else you want people to know, to get a way to get started getting to know you? I mean, those are some pretty awesome ways, but is there anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, isn't it interesting the light just turned
I know.
off?
It's so
Like we
weird,
are
right?
done.
We're finished. Close the episode.
So I'm in a little bit darker mode right now, but I just want to mention, yeah, I have different levels of offerings. So some people can just come on a monthly basis. I do these Kundalini activation breathwork sessions. Like people love that to kind of just get deeper into these energies and themselves. And some people like to take some of my kind of more advanced courses, like opening light language, or even doing a 3-day challenge to like repattern their nervous system. I have a self-paced class you can do. I call Quantum Recode Method, where you just literally listening to these meditations I have. I teach you how to actually put your own meditation together as well. So it's all about repatterning. And ultimately, if you're interested to be in service, I have also in September opening up a cohort of practitioners. So quantum healing practitioners. So we go deep into all of that and learning how to read Akashic records, learning how to do quantum healing, if and more using light language. It's like very much like advanced course, and that's a powerful way also to step and serve clients. If you feel a calling, you want to go deeper, this is one way too. So that is also available, and it's on my website as well. So I have a Quantum Academy, and all the links are there.
Awesome. I'll put a link in the show notes to your website so you guys can check out these awesome opportunities. And yeah, so please like, share, subscribe this episode, share it out so other people hear about Diana's gifts and all her wisdom that she's sharing in her podcast and everything else. And yeah, I'm going to give kisses now. Would you like to support me and help me out with this? You can do so if you
Sure.
want. You don't have to, but I always give kisses at the end of the show. Thank you guys for staying until the very, very end to get your Reiki kisses. Love you so much. Thanks for being on Earth. Thanks for sticking it out. We're doing great work. Lots of love to you. Have a beautiful week, everyone. We'll see you next week on Soul Nectar. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, awake to the show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.